Revealed, I discovered my daughter-in-law's life-changing plot to change everything overnight. Jack sat at the old wooden kitchen table, the kind with scratches and stains from years of family meals. A half-empty cup of coffee steamed beside him while the morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, painting his world in warm hues. His heart sank when he heard Maria's enthusiastic voice ringing from the other room. "Jack, I've got this amazing idea." Her spirit was infectious, but it made him anxious. Ellen leaned in closer to Jack as she stirred the oatmeal, her eyes reflecting concern. "You know how Maria always has those big dreams. What's this one about?" Jack sighed, a tight knot forming in his chest. Maria bounced into the kitchen, bright-eyed and full of hope. "I want to create a food co-op. It'll help our neighbors and bring everyone together." Her enthusiasm felt electric, like a spark in the dry tinder of their struggling community. Jack's heart swelled with pride for her ambition, yet a storm of skepticism brewed within him. This wasn't just a dream, it was a risk that could shatter their already fragile standing in town. "Think about it," Maria continued, her brown hair bouncing with animated gestures. "We can address hunger, support local farmers, and create jobs." Jack felt a mix of admiration and protectiveness. This was no mere project. It was Maria challenging everything they knew. As she spoke, Jack's mind raced back to the old days when men like him defined their worth by hard work, and family honor was paramount. He imagined the skeptical glares from old-timers like Jim, those who viewed progressive ideas as an affront to their way of life. His thoughts spiraled. Could a food co-op tear them apart or bring them together? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As days turned into weeks, Maria rallied the community, her enthusiasm infectious, yet met with cold shoulders. Jack watched as the whispers grew louder, doubts clouding the air. He felt a growing unrest, worrying about what could happen if her dreams collapsed. Tensions flared at home. Arguments erupted between him and Mike, who stood firmly beside Maria. "Dad, she's right. This town needs change." Mike's words struck Jack like a hammer inside his chest. Their worlds began to fracture. The town meeting loomed ahead, an ominous storm on the horizon. Jack prepared himself, stomach in knots, dreading the possible fallout. He was caught between the sturdy roots of tradition and the blooming branches of what could be. When Maria spoke at the meeting, her voice rang out clear and powerful, like sunlight breaking through a stormy sky. Jack's heart raced. Would he support her fight for progress, or would fear overshadow his love for family? The room grew still, the weight of uncertainty hanging thick in the air. Just then, a heated comment from the crowd shattered his resolve, leaving Jack torn between loyalty and fear. What would he choose? As the echoes of division clashed, the future of not just Maria's dreams, but their family's unity stood precariously at the edge, waiting for a decision. The town meeting room buzzed with emotions. Jack sat stiffly in his chair, weighing his options like a balancing scale. On one side was his daughter-in-law, vibrant and determined, her speech still echoing in his mind. On the other, the hardened faces of older men who had navigated life by steadfast traditions. They didn't blink or smile. They simply waited for a slip-up, a misstep, a moment of weakness. Maria stood firm, her hands gripping the podium as if it were her anchor. This is about more than just food. It's about building our community, about hope. Her words hung in the air like a promise, igniting flickers of inspiration in some eyes while dousing it with fear in others. Jack's heart thudded painfully against his ribs, torn by the love for his son and the undeniable urge to shield his family from potential shame. Before he knew it, a voice from the back shouted, "What makes you think a co-op will work? People around here are set in their ways." It was Bob, a local farmer known for his stubbornness. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Jack's stomach dropped. Without thinking, Mike shot up from his seat. "You don't understand. You're just afraid of change. It's time to embrace something new." There was a charge in his voice, something alive that filled the room with tension. Jack could barely breathe. He knew the stakes. If this turned ugly, it could not only ruin Maria's dream, but also tear their family apart. Jack's eyes met a crowd of unfriendly faces. He felt powerless, a spectator in a battle he didn't want to fight. Would he step forward and defend Maria, or retreat into the shadows? "Let's hear more from Maria," the moderator said, trying to regain control. Jack barely listened as Maria spoke again, passion pouring out of her like a burst dam. Every word was a plea, a call to action. And then it hit him, all at once, the dilemma tugging at him like persistent waves. Would defending her mean risking everything they'd built? A soft touch on his arm broke his trance. Ellen leaned in closer, concern etched on her face. "Jack, whatever you choose, just remember we're in this together." His stomach twisted. He wanted to believe they could navigate this storm, but doubt clawed at his mind. With every fissure in the crowd's support, Jack felt the weight of generations of tradition pressing down. Could he truly back Maria without losing the old ways, or worse yet, his family? As the discussion heated up, the voices rose, drowning out his thoughts, and Jack felt the walls closing in. He realized he needed to act, but how? With his heart racing and palms sweaty, he finally stood, his legs shaky but his resolve building. I have something to say," he announced, his voice trembling yet firm. The crowd turned toward him, 1,000 eyes piercing through him. He inhaled deeply, feeling the air fill his lungs, shaking off the weight of doubt. "Maria is right. Change is scary, but if we don't embrace it, we risk losing everything. Together, we can build something powerful." A hush fell over the room. Jack's heart soared with hope and dread. Could his words bridge the divide? Would they unite the room or plunge him deeper into uncertainty? As he stood there, vulnerability in his heart and the eyes of the community fixed on him, he waited. Silence stretched, thick and heavy, as the tension crackled. Would they rally behind Maria's vision, or was this just the beginning of their unraveling? The moment hung in the air, suspended between triumph and defeat, like the tense pause before a storm. Jack felt every heartbeat like a drum, each pulse urging him on as he prepared for whatever would come next. What would the crowd say? Would they join him, or would they turn against everything he held dear? A sharp breath swept through the room, breaking the oppressive silence like a sudden wind across a field. It was a moment so fragile that Jack could feel its weight pressing against him. The crowd's anticipation hung thick in the air, a collective heartbeat echoing his own. Then, slowly, like an ember igniting a fire, a voice rose from the right side of the room. It was Mrs. Henderson, the schoolteacher, known for her fiery spirit and willingness to challenge norms. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice steady. "We're all here because we care about our community. What if we could find a way to blend old traditions with new ideas?" Her words acted like a salve, soothing the sharp edges of tension. A few heads nodded, others, still cautious, held their silence. Jack felt a spark of hope gleaming within him. Perhaps, just perhaps, he wasn't alone in this fight. Maria's eyes lit up as she sensed the shift. Exactly. We can honor our past while building a future that's flexible and resilient. Her enthusiasm was contagious, spreading through the crowd like wildfire, lighting faces that once wore frowns of skepticism. But Bob wasn't ready to relent. He rolled his eyes, arms crossing defiantly over his chest. You think it's that simple? We've worked hard to maintain our ways. You're talking about changing everything. Jack could see the divide forming once more. The glimmer of hope in the air was threatened by fear, a fear that clung to old ways, resistant to the idea that perhaps change could be beneficial. As if sensing Jack's turmoil, Mike stepped forward, eyes ablaze with passion. No one's asking to toss aside what we've built, but don't you see? We risk stagnation. We could lose our farmers to bigger corporate farms if we don't adapt. That's not what we want, right? The murmurs turned into waves, emotions surging through the crowd. Jack felt the tension twist in the room, not unlike the churning of a stormy sea. He could see Maria, her determination unwavering, staring directly at him, silently pleading for his support. In that moment, something within him shifted. All the worry he had been carrying began to uncoil. The stakes were high, yet wasn't that what made life vibrant? The ability to adapt, to take risks, to dream of something bigger than themselves. Maria's right, he finally called out, his voice breaking through the chaos. We can't let fear of the unknown hold us back from possibility. This town has always been about standing together, so let's do just that. Let's explore how we can weave our traditions into something new and exciting. He felt a swell of strength as those words spilled out. The once skeptical faces began to brighten. Jack didn't care about the older men who scowled. What mattered were the younger folks, those who represented the future, and the hope ignited in their eyes. But then he saw Ellen biting her lip, a flicker of worry crossing her features as she glanced at the ones still clinging tightly to old beliefs. Would they be enough to sway the room? "Let's take a vote," shouted someone from the back, breaking the tension with a hopeful cheer. "Let's see how many of us are willing to give this co-op a try." A ripple of agreement moved through the room. Everyone had opinions, both for and against. Jack glanced back at Maria, who was practically glowing, her faith in him shining brighter than he had ever seen. Yet, as anticipation surged, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Would they win the day, or would resistance form a wall that no one could breach? And then a familiar fear rippled through the air, paralyzing once more, the fear of the unknown. Would they hold together, or would the town fracture under the burden of change? Jack could almost hear the drumbeat of their hearts sync with his own, an echo of uncertainty lingering just at the edge of their brave initiative. What lay ahead felt vast and uncharted, but together they would have to decide if they were ready to take that leap into the unknown. The moment of the vote hung like a thick fog, and Jack's heart raced as he looked around the room. People exchanged hushed whispers, weighing their choices like precious stones in a balanced scale. He could see hope battling with doubt across each familiar face. Ellen cleared her throat, drawing everyone's attention back to her. "Let's do this right. We need to make sure everyone has a voice. How about we go around the room first, share what we're truly feeling about this idea?" Her voice was steady, a grounded lighthouse in this turbulent sea. "Fine," Bob huffed, reluctantly uncrossing his arms. "Let's talk." His grumpy demeanor clashed with the eagerness in Maria's eyes. She caught Jack's gaze and smiled, a warm, encouraging light that made him feel like maybe, just maybe, they could win this. One by one, neighbors shared their thoughts, voices trembling at times, revealing vulnerability that Jack had not anticipated. Some valued tradition more than progress, voicing fears that echoed Bob's earlier sentiments. Others, like Maria and Mike, spoke of excitement and the need for change, their words weaving a tapestry of possibilities that tugged on Jack's heart. "I'm afraid of losing what we've always known," Bob eventually admitted, his tone softer. "But I also see the younger folks out there struggling, and they deserve a shot." The room quieted, the weight of shared fears mingling with newfound resolve. Jack noticed the sun beginning to set outside, its warm golden light spilling into the room, illuminating faces that were no longer cloaked in shadow. As the discussion deepened, Jack felt a strong pull, a responsibility to not only his generation, but also to those who would come after. "We can honor our past by building pathways for our future," he leaned in and said. "This isn't just about money or farming. It's about our families. Our kids deserve to thrive." Cheers erupted, emboldened by his conviction. For every nod and clap, his confidence swelled. The realization struck him. This co-op could be more than a shared venture. It could symbolize unity and transformation. Suddenly, the group began to shift from discussion to action. "Let's do the vote," someone shouted, excitement crackling through the air. Jack nodded, adrenaline coursing through him. He watched as people moved closer together, a wave of energy building as they prepared to raise their hands. Sinking into a moment of quiet introspection, he contemplated the weight of what lay ahead. What if this didn't work? Could they withstand another failure? The voting began. Hands shot up in the air, some shaking slightly. Hope and tension mingled like smoke in the room, each hand raised echoing a call for a future that didn't exist yet. "Let's count," Ellen guided, gathering courage as she wrangled the excitement of the room. Jack felt his heart pound, each beat demanding an answer. Would they reach for change or retreat into comfort? As the votes were tallied, Jack's pulse quickened. He exchanged glances with Maria, and they shared a small smile, a silent pact reflecting their shared belief. Yet amid the buzz, an unsettling thought crept into his mind. Could they truly unite everyone? Could they bridge the chasm between old and new? Finally, Ellen stood before the crowd, a note of seriousness etched on her face. "As the count finishes, we must consider what we do next. Together or apart, that's the choice ahead of us." The room fell silent, every eye focused on her. In that fragile moment, Jack sensed the stakes rising higher. The choice they were about to make transcended just a vote. It could define their community's identity. Jack swallowed hard, his thoughts spiraling. Would this be the moment they changed everything? Would they be able to come together and break free from fear once and for all? As she began announcing the results, the world outside faded to a whisper, and Jack could feel the air electric with anxiety. The answer to their collective future was hovering just within reach. Ellen cleared her throat, her voice steady despite the tension. "The votes are in." She paused, letting the silence hang for an agonizing moment, her expression unreadable. Jack could feel the room holding its breath, each face caught between hope and fear. What if the outcome didn't align with their dreams? What if they faced another setback? He glanced at Maria, her brow furrowed with anticipation, and he wished he could project confidence through his worried gaze. "Out of 30 votes, we have," Ellen began, each word weighing heavier than the last. 17 in favor of moving forward with the co-op proposal, 13 against. A collective gasp rolled through the crowd. Jack's heart leaped. 17! They'd won. The change they'd hoped for looked more tangible than ever. But before he could celebrate, murmurs of disbelief and unease rippled across the room. Bob's voice broke through. "I can't believe this. Are we really going through with this?" His disbelief felt like a cold splash of water on a warm day. We voted Bob, Maria replied, moving closer to him, her tone firm but compassionate. This is a chance for our future. We need to embrace it together. The exchange ignited a spark in Jack. Bob, you admitted the younger folks deserve a shot. This is our chance to give it to them. Let's build something better together. But Bob remained hesitant, his brow furrowed, wrestling with his thoughts. I get it, I really do. But what if it doesn't work? What if we end up worse off than before? Ellen, sensing the divide, raised her hands for attention. Fear is a powerful thing, she said, her voice gently confident. But so is hope. This will not be easy, and challenges are ahead for sure. But we can choose to face them together. Her words hung in the air, igniting an internal debate among the group. Some nodded, emboldened by her optimism, while others still wore expressions heavy with doubt. Jack felt the urgency swell within him. We don't have to go at it alone. We can form committees, set up meetings, encourage each other. Let's share the load. He could see Maria's eyes dancing with excitement beside him.
Exactly, Mike chimed in. We're smarter than just one idea or leader. This is about all of us, and we're already in it together. Slowly, murmurs shifted from doubt to consideration. People began to voice ideas, thoughts flooding back into the room. They discussed plans, committees, and responsibilities. It felt electric, but the root of uncertainty still clung to the discussions like an uninvited guest. Jack couldn't help but steal glances at Maria, who lit up with every contribution from their neighbors, her enthusiasm infectious. They could do this, he believed, with growing conviction. But as the evening progressed, he couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play, some hidden fear gnawing at the edges of their collective ambition. As discussions wound down, Jack felt a shift. So, what do we do now? He asked, looking around the room. Ellen stepped forward, her eyes meeting Jack's. We take the next steps together, and we find a way to ensure everyone feels heard. We can create something amazing, but only if we're willing to face what's underneath these doubts. Outside, shadows began to stretch, and the room buzzed with both excitement and lingering fears. Could they really take this leap together? Would everyone truly commit to this journey? Jack's heart ached with hope and uncertainty, knowing this was just the beginning. But before he could formulate a response, the door swung open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the darkening sky. It was Sarah, his daughter-in-law, and the look on her face screamed urgency. "Jack, you have to hear this," she shouted, her breath puffing in visible clouds as she stepped inside. "It's about the co-op, and it changes everything." Jack's stomach flipped, anticipation mixing with fear. What could possibly be so important? What was she going to reveal? Sarah rushed into the room, her eyes wide, her breath uneven. The weight of her words seemed to hang heavily in the air. Everyone else stared at her, caught in a moment where excitement and anxiety collided, creating an electric tension. "What is it, Sarah?" Jack felt his heart race as she approached. "What's going on?" Sarah took a quick breath, glancing around at the faces that were now full of concern. "I just found out that there's a major grant available for co-ops like ours. We could get funding to help kickstart this whole project." At first, the words sank into Jack like stones in a still pond. The room stayed quiet as the implications settled. A grant? That could mean resources, support, the kind of thing they needed to make their dream a reality. "Might not be so easy," Bob grumbled from the back, but his voice lacked conviction. Everyone leaned in, eager for details. It's a big deal," Sarah continued, her excitement bubbling over. "We'd have to apply quickly, within a month, but if we do it right, we could secure enough money to cover nearly half our initial costs." Could we really? Maria's eyes sparkled at the prospect. "That would change everything. We could build the community center we discussed,
invest in local production, we wouldn't be limited by our own resources anymore. Jack felt the excitement in the room surge as people began to nod in agreement. Hope danced from one person to the next as if they'd flicked a switch. This was the moment they had been waiting for. But we'd need to get organized fast, Jack said, feeling a wave of urgency wash over him. If we're going to even think about this, we need to form a committee dedicated to the grant application. It's going to take all of us to put together a compelling proposal. Count me in, Maria announced, and a few others echoed their agreement, their faces shining with enthusiasm. Sarah looked at Jack, a hint of doubt creeping back in. Do you think we can really pull this off? I don't want to get everyone's hopes up if we can't make it happen. We can do this, Sarah. Jack felt a confidence building inside him, stronger than before. We've already proven we can make progress. This grant could be our path forward. His words seemed to plant a seed of determination in the room. As ideas began flying, the group started strategizing. Who would lead the application, what key points they needed to highlight, and how they could seek volunteers to gather the necessary information. In the whirlwind of conversation, Jack looked around at the ardent faces, each one reflecting a glimmer of hope. Among them, he found Maria, her structure of confidence supporting those who faltered. He felt a warmth grow, a connection that restored his belief that they could achieve something great together. As the meeting started to wind down, Jack's mind raced. They were at the precipice of something monumental, with a chance to reshape their community in ways they had only dreamed. But lurking just behind that hope was an unsettling thought. It was too perfect, too ideal. What if there were strings attached to the grant, complexities they hadn't foreseen? The darkening sky cast deep shadows through the windows as the last of their focus began to fade. Jack had a sudden urge to rally everyone for one last thought. I need to ask, he hesitated, sensing the air thicken with tension. What happens if we don't get the grant? The room fell silent. Their high spirits dimmed slightly as the reality of the risk settled on their shoulders. Do we walk away? Bob finally voiced the question hanging unspoken. Do we just give up? Jack sighed, wrestling with his emotions. They were already committed, but would they have the courage to face what came next? And more importantly, could they bind themselves together even if the worst happened? I don't think we quit, he replied slowly, looking into each face in the room. What we're building is bigger than a grant. It's about all of us coming together, no matter what. There was a flick. As they recommitted to their mission, the door creaked open again. This time it was another figure, Tom, the town mayor, who entered with a stern look that instantly shifted the atmosphere. I just got word, he said, his voice grave. This grant could attract some serious scrutiny. If we're going to go for this, we need to prepare for the challenges it may bring. Jack's heart sank. This was just getting more complicated. What did Tom know that they didn't? What kind of challenges awaited them? Who or what were they about to face? Jack felt his pulse quicken as he met Tom's serious gaze. What do you mean by scrutiny, Tom? Is there something we should know? Tom shifted his weight, his brow furrowing deeper. The funding bodies don't just hand out money for free. They'll dig into our backgrounds, our community ties, maybe even our past projects. They want to see if we're viable. It's not just a matter of filling out forms. They'll expect transparency, and if there's any hint of mismanagement or scandal, well, you get the picture. The anxiety in the room ramped up a notch. Sarah's earlier excitement faded, replaced by doubt. How can we ensure they'll see us positively? She queried, her voice trembling slightly. Bob chimed in again. What if they uncover something from our past, some old conflicts or complaints? We can't afford to look bad. Jack swallowed hard, the taste of fear coating his tongue.
Look, we can't backtrack now. If there are concerns, we address them head on. We need to show them we're united, that we've learned from our past. Easier said than done, Bob muttered, crossing his arms defensively. Listen, Maria interjected, her resolve making her voice steady. We've come this far. We're not going to let a few hurdles scare us away. We can handle this as a team. If we're transparent and stand by each other, it'll be tough for them to write us off. I believe in what we're doing. Tom nodded but remained cautious. I'm just telling you what to expect. If you want to go through with this, get your story straight. Make sure everyone's on the same page. The last thing we need is confusion or secrecy. The meeting morphed into strategizing mode, ideas bouncing around like ping pong balls. They discussed their strengths, past achievements, even community testimonials. It felt like a race against time, a concerted effort to bolster their image. Each word became crucial, a powerful reminder of why they were doing this in the first place. But as they brainstormed, Jack felt a gnawing worry in his gut. Were they being too naive? The weight of the future pressed down on him. Tom, can you advise us on how to better prepare? Jack finally asked, his earlier bravado giving way to genuine concern. Keep everything documented, Tom suggested, pointing at various people in the group. Have them vouch for you. Have records of past projects, positive changes you've brought, and if there are any bumps, he paused, glancing at Jack. Just be honest. If they see you trying to hide something, that can sink your chances. The next few weeks loomed large, stretching ahead of them like a narrow path through a dense forest. Jack watched as people moved with purpose, focused on gathering support and testimonials, creating pamphlets, and painting a positive picture of their community efforts. Through it all, his eyes kept returning to Maria. She seemed to channel her strength into her work, keeping spirits high even when the stress threatened to pull everyone down. Her passion fueled Jack's determination. Maybe they could turn this tide together. One night, as they gathered for another meeting, Jack caught a glimpse of something on Sarah's face, a flicker of uncertainty amid the hustle. He approached her quietly. You okay? I just worry. We might be sailing into stormy waters. What if it all crumbles? She admitted softly, the weight of her concern threading through her voice. Jack took a deep breath, his nerves sparking. What if it does? We deal with it together. That's the whole point. We're a community. We're stronger as a whole. He sought to reassure her, but inside, doubt still lurked. They were diving head first into a world fraught with uncertainty. As the meeting adjourned and everyone began to file out, their spirits still flickered with hope. But that small, lingering fear remained. Their journey was only just beginning. What could shatter their unity before they even got started? And then, just as the last of the chairs were pushed in, the phone rang at the front desk. Jack looked at Sarah, who had already picked it up, her face paling with every word she listened to. He could see the shock radiating off her. What is it? He asked, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. Sarah's eyes flicked up to meet his, filled with dread. It's the grant committee. They want to meet with us. Jack's heart raced. When? Tomorrow. They're demanding we come prepared. They want to know everything about us. Sarah's voice wavered. The air felt thick. Was this the beginning of their dreams or the shattering of their hopes? Jack faced the group who were gathering their belongings, unaware of the weighty turn this meeting would take. Are we ready for this? He asked quietly, as the gravity of their situation sank in all around them. They were about to find out just how strong their bonds really were. The night crept silently around the group,
wrapping their anxious hearts in uncertainty. Jack could feel every tick of the clock on the wall, a constant reminder of how little time they had left. The weight of the upcoming meeting with the grant committee suffocated the usual camaraderie in the room. Conversation started to fade, replaced by nervous glances and shifting feet. "Okay," Jack finally said, breaking the thick atmosphere.
Let's go through everything in order. Let's go through what we know and what we need to prepare." Tom took a deep breath, stepping up to the challenge. "We need our project history, details of community involvement, and testimonials. But more importantly, we need to share our vision clearly. They'll want to know not just what we've done, but what we plan to do." "Right," Sarah responded, her voice gaining a little strength. "We should have a clear plan for the future, what we hope to achieve if we get the funding." As they worked through their strategy, Jack noticed that Maria had become uncharacteristically quiet. Her brow was knit with worry, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. When Jack caught her eye, she gave him a small smile, but he could see that it didn't reach her eyes. "Maria," he asked gently, pulling her aside as they reorganized their notes, "what's on your mind? You seem distant." She sighed, looking down at the papers scattered across the table. "I'm concerned about sustainability. What if they don't believe in our ability to keep things going after the funding runs out? I know we've made progress, but can we truly prove long-term success?" Her vulnerability struck Jack hard. They were all wrestling with doubts, but hearing her articulate it brought a wave of empathy rushing over him. "We can show them the foundation we've built, the community support, the testimonials from people we've helped. That matters. We can prove we're not just chasing after money here. We care." "Do we care enough?" Maria whispered, hurt flashing in her eyes. "What if we're just fooling ourselves?" Jack stepped closer, his determination flaring. "No, we can't let that fear dictate our actions. Believe me, we've fought too hard to give in now. Tomorrow, we need to stand together to show them that we're a team. That's our strength." The sound of chairs scraping against the floor pulled them back into focus. With renewed urgency, they pooled their energy into creating a cohesive presentation, mapping out plans, sharing stories, and reiterating the reasons behind their mission. They practiced their roles, going over and over key points until every word felt like a promise. Later that night, as they began to wrap up, fatigue seeped into their bones. Jack glanced at the clock. It was late, and they could see weariness etched across faces that had fought so hard to stay optimistic. When the meeting finally adjourned, he felt a flicker of pride at what they had accomplished together, but it was quickly overshadowed by trepidation about the approaching morning. As everyone slowly drifted out, Sarah lingered behind. She looked firmly at Jack. "What happens if they don't see what we see? If all we've built just falls apart?" Jack opened his mouth to respond, but words momentarily escaped him. "Then we'll figure it out, together. Whatever happens, we'll face it as a family. We'll support each other." A fleeting smile crossed her lips. But it didn't last. "I hope you're right." Once alone, Jack took a deep breath, feeling the tension tighten around his chest. This wasn't just about them anymore. They were carrying the dreams and hopes of their community. As he stared at the mountain of notes, a sudden wave of doubt washed over him. Were they truly prepared? Just then, the phone buzzed on the desk, lighting up the empty room with urgency. Jack reached for it, his heart pounding as he answered. The voice on the other end sounded frantic. "This is urgent. You need to know. There are some things in your past that they're aware of. You might want to address it before it's too late." Each word felt like a punch to his gut, the world around him spinning as uncertainty iced over his veins. How could they have overlooked something so critical? Jack's breath hitched as he realized if they hadn't brushed over the past, this meeting could turn into a nightmare before they even had a chance to begin. What would they do now? Jack's heart raced as he hung up the phone, the implications of that conversation crashing down on him like a tidal wave. He glanced at the assorted papers on the desk, rewritten proposals, heartfelt testimonials, plans for the community center's future. What if they all held secrets that could unravel their efforts? The thought felt suffocating. He pushed away from the desk, running his hands through his hair. "Focus, Jack," he whispered to himself. But how could he? Anxiety gnawed at him like a persistent thorn, and he could already feel the weight of tomorrow's scrutiny hanging over him. Determined not to let despair take hold, Jack stepped out into the dimly lit hallway. The silence was almost deafening, a stark contrast to the whirring thoughts in his mind. He needed clarity. He needed to talk to someone. As he made his way to the others, he felt a desperate urgency. It was less about confronting whatever skeletons lurked in their past and more about facing the fear that threatened to fracture their unity. When he found Tom in the kitchen, his friend was pouring coffee, the rich aroma filling the air. His brow was furrowed, indicating he was lost in thought. "Tom," Jack said, swallowing hard, "we need to talk." Tom looked over, concern flickering in his eyes. "Is everything okay? You look tense." "It's about the meeting tomorrow. I just got a call. There's something in our past that the committee knows about, something we didn't prepare for." Jack paused, his throat tightening. "What if they use it against us?" Tom's expression hardened. "What do you mean? What are they aware of?" "We might not have covered all our bases on past projects, things that didn't go well. If they bring it up, it could taint everything we've worked for." Jack felt a rush of heat, anxiety pushing against his chest. If it comes down to that, all our dreams could vanish. Tom took a deep breath, the gravity of the situation beginning to settle in. We can't let them control the narrative. We should address it head on in the meeting. Open up about the struggles we faced. Show them how we learned and adapted. Jack rubbed his temples, weighing Tom's suggestion. But what if they see that as a weakness? What if they think we shouldn't even be asking for funding at all? Or they could see it as a sign of growth, a testament to our resilience, Tom countered, his voice firm. Accountability might even work in our favor. You're just afraid they'll latch on to negativity instead of seeing the bigger picture. Jack felt torn. The two sides of his mind fought for dominance. The instinct to hide past failures versus the urge to shine light on their journey. He knew Tom was right, but fear was a powerful enemy. "Let's get the rest of the team. We need to strategize," Jack finally said, his voice resolute. "We'll need to craft our narrative." They moved swiftly through the halls, gathering Sarah and Maria, who were still nursing their nerves in a shared workspace. The moment Jack shared the news, their faces paled. But as he laid out Tom's counter-argument, he could see hesitation transform into determination. "You know what? They might be scared to confront the past, but we can show them how we handle it," Sarah said, her eyes sparkling with newfound fire. "If we control the message, we might even surprise them." "We're more than our mistakes," Maria added, folding her arms defiantly. "Let them see that we learned and grew stronger as a team." With each spoken word, Jack felt a sense of hope stirring. Maybe they could turn this fear into a powerful weapon instead of allowing it to crush them. His mind whirled, mapping out responses and building a narrative that could encompass their journey. But as they rehearsed their speech, doubt crept back in, biting hard. What if they couldn't convey their truth? As they settled in with a renewed focus, Maria turned serious. "Jack, can we really handle whatever they throw at us? We have so much at stake." Jack met her gaze, his own uncertainty mirrored in her eyes. "We'll face it together. Whatever happens, we can only be honest about who we are and what we've endured." The group unified around him, their hands interlinked on the table, a visual representation of their resolve. Yet that seed of fear lingered, growing like a shadow, threatening to pull their hard-fought unity apart. Just then, the phone rang again, its urgent buzz slicing through the tension. Jack's heart sank. He looked at the screen. It was an unknown number. An instinct told him it would change everything again. "Should I answer it?" he asked, voice shaking. Nervous glances swept among the group, mirroring Jack's unease. He took a breath and pressed accept, bracing for whatever revelation might come. Little did they know, it could force them to confront the very fabric of their identities. "Hello?" he said, words barely escaping his lips. A voice came through, clipped and urgent. "You don't know the full extent of what's at stake. There's something you need to understand about the committee." Jack's heart dropped, and he felt the world tilt once more. Could this call be the key to unraveling their problems, or would it push them over the edge? The voice on the line continued, seeming to pull Jack into a whirlwind of revelations that threatened to swallow him whole. "They've been monitoring your project closely. If they find anything questionable, it'll end your co-op before it even begins." Jack's grip on the phone tightened. "What do you mean by questionable?" "Old controversies, past disagreements within the community, anything that could hint you may not work together properly." The caller's tone was dark, knowing. "You must address these issues before it spirals out of control." He ended the call, heart hammering in his chest. Looking around the room, he noticed Sarah, Maria, and Tom holding their breath, waiting for him to speak. They know about the past, our past tensions, the disagreements some still harbor. If they sense any weakness, we could lose everything. An air of panic washed over the group. "But we've worked so hard," Sarah exclaimed, despair creeping into her voice. "What if they don't care about our growth? What if all they see is the dust that we've tried to sweep under the rug?" Jack felt determination rising within him. "No, we'll show them that we are not just the mistakes we've made. We'll celebrate how we've come together, how far we've grown, and how our failures have only driven us to strive harder. We'll turn this fear into strength." The tension transformed, sparking new fervor. Perhaps they didn't have to win everyone over or erase the history that clung to them. They could embrace it, use it as a badge of resilience instead. "Let's acknowledge our past openly," Tom suggested, a fire igniting in his eyes. "We need to articulate how our community has evolved. Those who doubted us have become our greatest allies. Let them see that we rise as a collective." Jack nodded, the idea resonating deeply within him. "Together, we'll control the narrative. Let's start to practice what we will say when we face the committee tomorrow. Let's show them that no matter the storms we've weathered, we stand united." As they huddled together, an electric energy filled the room again. They leaned into the challenge ahead, developing their statements, weaving powerful stories of community struggles, successes, and growth. Each voice added layers to the narrative, building an unbreakable bond as they formed their strategy. The night wore on, but each moment spent around the table reinforced their commitment. They discussed names, moments shared under the canopy of stars outside, and dreams that tied them to one another. Laughter punctuated the seriousness, reminding them why they were united in the first place. When they finally stepped out of the house into the cool night air, Jack felt buoyed. A sense of purpose coursed through him. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together just like we rehearsed," he repeated, a mantra that rang in their hearts. As dawn broke, the sun painted the world with the colors of hope, orange and gold spilling over everything, just like the possibilities that lay before them. They arrived at the committee's building, each step eliciting a mix of nerves and excitement. Settled into the cramped meeting room, Jack's palms began to sweat, heart pounding louder than ever. The room was filled with unfamiliar faces, stern, expectant. The atmosphere crackled with intensity. Jack began to speak, voice steady yet low. "Thank you for the opportunity to present our vision for this food co-op. Today, we're not just here to ask for funding, we're here to share a piece of who we are." As he continued, he could feel the weight of the committee's scrutiny. But there, in the corner, he saw Maria, her silence a mystery waiting to unfold. With every word he uttered, Jack could almost sense the community spirit wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. Their presentation turned into a passionate dialogue. Testimonials flowed between them and the committee, the hurdles they'd overcome, the milestones achieved. Fears were voiced and faced head-on, reaching deep into their community history and unearthing buried struggles, yet flipping them on their head to reveal strength, their collective resilience. Jack led the charge, confronting the past with honesty. Yes, we've had to navigate challenges. Yes, there have been times we've struggled to hold together. But those battles have shaped us. We learned, and we are stronger because of them. With each moment, the initial skepticism in the eyes of the panel began to soften. Maria stepped in, sharing her heart. This co-op is a reflection of our determination to create a supportive, unified community. Every single one of us contributes to this vision. Together, we will foster growth, hope. And just like that, something shifted. The tension began to dissipate, replaced by murmurs of agreement. "We want this," they said, eyes lighting up. By the end of their presentation, as the committee began to deliberate, Jack felt the tight knot in his stomach finally start to unravel. They had shared their truth, their dreams, and their fears. Whatever the outcome was out of their hands now. But as the room filled with anxious silence, hope radiated through him. "Together," he whispered as he grasped Maria's hand tightly, looking around at each determined face beside him. They had transformed the uncertainty into a rallying cry for community, trust, and unity. Finally, after what felt like forever, the head committee member leaned forward, a satisfied smile breaking through. "We believe in your vision. This funding is not about your past mistakes. This grant is about possibilities. We stand united with you on this journey." Cheers erupted in the room, a wave of pure exhilaration crashing over them. Tears streamed down Maria's face, and Jack felt his heart swell, bursting with pride for everyone who had chosen to believe against the odds in a brighter future. As they stepped outside, the air felt lighter, filled with possibilities. They had turned the tide together, embraced their journey, and emerged stronger. And from that day on, that co-op became more than just a food source. It symbolized their collective triumph over adversity, a community united not only in purpose, but also in strength, belonging, and hope. But remember, if you want to keep following these incredible journeys and transformations, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like to feed the algorithm and ensure we keep giving you these powerful stories. Comment below your feelings about this ending and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this journey. Don't wait, not even one more second. Your support can make all the difference.